special effects. Now I know what you're thinking. Alright, let's just get this over with. Give most of the points to the new Kong. Leave the original Kong in the dust because the original special effects are dated and look stupid. Well, hold your horses there, buddy. Because most of the special effects movies you know and love, you owe to the eighth wonder of the world. Like what, you ask? Well, like sound design. You know how Chewbacca in the original Star Wars is a combination of different animal noises? Well, guess what you owe that to? King Kong. That's right, the dinosaur noises were done by mixing different animal sounds together. Awesome, right? What else? Well, stop motion. Only one other film really was popular for stop motion before that, and this is a movie called Land of the Lost. But this is the first mainstream film to really bring a creature to life using stop motion, which now we have all kinds of CGI and everything, but this was an amazing innovation of its time, and it looks amazing for its time. And stop motion has only gotten better and better. What's some good examples of stop motion? Well, again, we'll turn to the original Star Wars trilogy. Tauntauns, all owed to the stop motion work done in this movie. What else did they do?
Because they didn't want to lose quality and there wasn't the duplication techniques that there are today, they had to do a lot of it in camera.
The simplest in-camera effects were achieved by exposing part of the frame, then running the same piece of film through the camera again to expose the other part with a different image.
And then you processed it and hoped like hell that there wasn't anything wrong with it, that it was going to be a shot.
For more complex shots that combined live action with animation, O'Brien used either the Williams process or the Dunning process to produce what are called traveling mats.
It was a way of shooting an actor against a neutral background of some kind, some particular color, and then essentially cutting that background out and dropping them into some other background.
The Dunning process employed a system of blue and yellow lighting filtered and photographed onto black and white film. By loading two strips of film into the camera at the same time, a procedure called bipacking, the final composite image was created right in the camera. The Williams process was similar to Dunning, but because it didn't require specially colored lights, it could be used for wider shots.
Kong shaking the men off the log is a Williams process, and pushing the gates open in the native village, and the elements are combined in the optical printer rather than being combined in camera.
The optical printer was a brand new device at the time King Kong was being made. It synchronized a projector with a camera so that several strips of film could be combined into a single composite image. Linwood Dunn, the key man in RKO's photographic effects department, had built one for the studio and was looking for ways to prove what it could do.
And it looks amazing, especially this scene right here. Now, admittedly, yes, there are some sequences, in fact, only one that I could find that really took me out of the movie, and that was this one.
What do you call this thing? Why, something from the dinosaur family.
But besides that, this is just amazing. I mean, get this, get this.
But in a stroke of genius, O'Brien conceived an entirely new use for rear screen projection.
O'Brien devised a way of rear projecting images, and that could be put up one frame at a time, just like animation.
The beauty of miniature rear projection is that you can take a live action plate that you've shot and essentially project it onto a tiny screen that's built into the miniature, so that in fact you're making a composite right there in front of camera. And then of course you're projecting one frame at a time, so you advance a frame in the projector, then you do your animation in the front, you photograph it, advance the frame of the projector again, and so forth.
What? What? That... Have you ever heard of that before? What? That is amazing. Now, the new Kong uses a lot of amazing effects too. A lot of people like to focus on how, not believable the CGI is in parts, especially here.
I need you in the shot or people will say they're fake. Well, nobody's gonna think these are fake.
Are you sure about that?
But did you know they used a lot of miniatures as well? They filmed on location a lot in New Zealand. It's an amazing special effect work as well.
One of the jumping off points that Byron Crabb and the other art directors on Kong used was the great 19th century illustrations, engravings of Gustave Doré. They have a tendency to have a very bright or blown out background, and then a sort of more normally lit midground, and then a very dark sort of contrasty foreground. And this sort of depth was very characteristic of the 1933 version of King Kong.
I wanted us to capture much the same quality in our version. I wanted our version to sort of feel like our jungle was a close, cousin of the 1933 jungle. So we use very much a layered approach.
You have those layers of foreground, middle ground, background, and normally as an art department we'd be involved in making all those things. We were much more involved in making the foreground.
To be efficient in live-action shooting, only a fairly small piece of dressed set was built on the live-action stage, and essentially behind that, just blue screen. And that's a perfectly good way to work because it means that you can focus on making that environment absolutely convincing.
The guys have been working around the clock in the last few weeks to get the set ready for our first day, and they have just got it done in the nick of time.
We are christening the Kong set. Now, if you want to take a quick look around, you'll see what that set is. And we had to do 6 months in the Southern Alps to train for this.
Peter had become very fond of the technique of extending a built set with a miniature set, and we'd use it with great success in the Rings films. And he wanted to use even more of that here.
I love the fact that with miniatures you can create a scale and a grandeur and a stylization that you are never going to get in the natural world.
So in many cases, he would arrange to have a set that was only built up to where it would clear the actors' heads, and everything above that would be either a digital extension or a miniature extension. And this was used very effectively in, let's say, the village wall, for example.
We built our 12 scale miniature first, and then it was surveyed, and the set was actually built from the miniature.
But it was only built about halfway up, and only a section about 200 feet long was constructed. Every time that you see any more than that, that's a miniature extension. So it's creating an enormous area of landscape that you could never hope to build and you could never hope to find.
The miniatures were shot sometimes in layers that would be sandwiched together to create this ever-receding depth.
So when we're looking at a master shot of the log chasm, you have the chasm that's near camera, and then where that ends, you have another piece of chasm that's a little further away and it's getting a little more out in the sunlight to create the sense that it goes from dark and gloomy up here in the foreground to bright and sunshiny way in the distance.
Especially the motion capture. I would argue that the invention of motion capture is as innovative as stop motion was for the original Kong. The emotion that's able to be emitted by this beast just gives this film a whole nother layer than its predecessor. Amazing, especially with Andy Serkis at the helm. It's time to rank them. I'm going to give the original Kong a 9 out of 10. That's right. I love the special effects in this movie so much, especially after learning how painstaking it was to make them and how amazing it turned out. This is just a testament to filmmakers' innovation, and a lot of these special effects are still used today. Gotta love it. Yeah, it's dated, but you know what? A lot of the CGI in the new Kong is dated now that we've gotten used to CGI. So, dating is not a criteria for this round. So what about the new Kong? Well, it used a lot of miniatures, as we said. Motion capture was an amazing innovation. It had only been used a couple of times, such on Lord of the Rings with Gollum, done by Andy Serkis. Come on, it's Andy Serkis. So I'm going to give that a 9 out of 10. That's right. Both of these films tie for this round. They're both amazing special effects movies. Let's head to the next round. Hey guys, hope you're enjoying this Kong vs. Kong edition of Movie Combat. Next up, we got our final round, themes. I think I got some pretty unique stuff to say, and it's my favorite round, so hopefully it will be yours too. But until next time, we're your friends, not your boss. I'm Thomas from Full Time Fans, and we'll see you next time. Later.